Hello and welcome. My name is Al Barrows, and this is UFO Disclosure, the podcast that's meant to show an average person's reaction to all the UFO, UAP news from everywhere and anywhere. Today, I'd like to relate a story I saw on alien cases. It involves one of the most unique extraterrestrial abduction cases ever recorded in South America. Okay, so in April 1996, in Brazil, the night is dense and silent. At the parish of St. Peter and St. Paul, the lights go out one by one. Alfredo Mendez, the 27-year-old sacristan, which is a person that helps priests with their vestments. Mendez is finishing his long day of work. His life is the church, serving the impoverished community of Guama with an energy that seems boundless. Around 1:30 a.m., he walks the priest to the gate, a nightly routine, part of his job. But on this night, something is different. As he walks back to lock the final doors, a strange sensation washes over him, an unsettling feeling of being watched by eyes he cannot see, an agitation that quickens his pulse for no apparent reason. He looks around at the deserted street, at the shadows cast by the trees, but sees no one. As he closes the final gate leading to the church's inner courtyard, a grassy area approximately 100 by 100, this feeling intensifies. He is about to cross this open space to get to his room when a powerful light erupts from the canopy of one of the trees. In the blink of an eye, without a sound, the light transforms into a solid object that hovers over the center of the lawn, just a few feet from him. Pure fear takes hold of Alfredo. It's a primal, instinctive terror. He turns and runs, screaming desperately for his roommate, Kilt, pounding on the door with all his strength. When the door finally opens, Alfredo stumbles inside and looks back, just in time to see the object hover for a few more seconds before shooting off in the opposite direction, disappearing into the night. Inside the room, panic still consumes him. His frightened friend reports having been woken not by the screams, but by the violent sound of the fists on the door and the bizarre brightness that illuminated the courtyard, as if something were on fire. Trembling, Alfredo can only manage to say, "I saw a flying saucer. It's out there, and it's going to get us." Together, they drag a sofa to barricade the door. In desperation, Alfredo calls the police, but his story is met with mockery. An officer tells them they haven't yet invented a police car for chasing flying saucers. Alone and terrified, all they can do is pray. Alfredo feels exhausted, weak, as if all his energy had been drained, but his nerves keep him from resting. The next morning brings sunlight, but not peace. Alfredo tries to convince himself that it was just all a nightmare, a trick of his tired mind. He immerses himself in his daily chores, attempting to erase the terrifying image from the night before. One of his tasks is to arrange for the courtyard grass to be cut. It is at this moment that his denial shatters. As the lawnmower passes over the center of the courtyard, an anomaly is revealed. Where the object hovered, there is a perfect circular mark. The grass inside the circle is dry, yellowed, contrasting with the green surrounding it. It doesn't look burned, but rather dehydrated. Inside the circle, 3 smaller marks form a triangle where the soil is visibly compressed and sunken. For Alfredo, it is undeniable physical proof. It wasn't a dream. It really happened. The story begins to spread, not because of Alfredo, but because on that same night, other residents had called radio stations and the police to report strange lights in the sky. The case reaches local newspapers, and With it attracts the attention of researchers from NEC, the Center for the Expansion of Consciousness, a group linked to the UFO magazine and dedicated to studying ufology experiences. They travel to the church to meet the church worker and see the mark with their own eyes. As they speak with Alfredo, the investigators, led by Jose Luis Lanoso, realize the story is even stranger than the mark on the grass suggests. It's the small details, the cracks in Alfredo's memory, that point to something far deeper than a simple sighting. The first inconsistency, time. The priest left at 1:30 a.m., yet when he looked at the clock after the event, it was already past 2 a.m. There is a gap that he cannot account for. The second and more disturbing, space. Alfredo clearly remembers seeing the UFO while standing at the courtyard's entrance. His next memory is of being on the other side of the courtyard, pounding on his bedroom door. He has no recollection of crossing the lawn, an act that would have forced him to pass dangerously close to the hovering craft. The third clue emerges when the researchers ask him to draw what he saw. Alfredo readily draws the craft, but he draws it as seen from above, with details on its upper surface. The investigator's question is simple and devastating. Alfredo, if you were on the ground looking up, how could you see the details on the top of the craft? Alfredo falls silent, confused, and worried. He has no answer. For the researchers, the pieces fit together. The missing time, the inexplicable teleportation across the courtyard, the knowledge of impossible details. It all points to a single, terrifying conclusion. Alfredo Mendez didn't just see a UFO. He was taken. He was abducted. Despite his fear, Alfredo agrees to undergo a hypnotic regression session. On July the 30th, 1996, months after the event, he finally lies down, closes his eyes, and is guided back to that April night. And what emerges from his subconscious is a detailed and terrifying narrative of the time that was stolen from his mind. Under hypnosis, he relives the moment, but his memory now reveals more. It wasn't just one object. First, a small silver probe, about 7 feet long, descended and landed silently on the grass. Immediately after, a much larger craft emerged above it, hovering in the air. Alfredo sees himself paralyzed at the gate. A greenish light envelops him. He feels the ground disappear from beneath his feet. "I'm not feeling. The thing is lifting me up," he murmurs during the session. He is pulled upward toward the larger craft. He materializes inside an environment he describes as an aquarium, a kind of glass or energy chamber. 8 beings are observing him. The lights are so bright he can't see their faces, but he makes out their tall silhouettes, nearly 7 feet tall, wearing silver suits. One of them extends a hand in a gesture asking for calm. They remove him from the aquarium. Now he can see them better. The beings have no ears, possess large, almond-shaped eyes, and a sort of vertical fin on their foreheads, something he initially described as a horn. On their chests is an emblem, a pyramid with a wing. To his astonishment, he recognizes one of them from a dream he had in the past. He is undressed and clothed in a white jumpsuit with a glowing button. Then he is laid on a cold table. The fear returns with full force when he realizes what is happening. They are extracting his sperm using a machine that, though frightening, causes him no pain. As the procedure occurs, a voice enters his mind. It's not words, but a stream of knowledge. The voice tells him they come from a distant and harmonious planet. They say they have been observing him for 5 years and chose him because his soul was not yet contaminated by the feelings that prevail here on Earth. The voice identifies itself. The being he recognized is named Taram. After the collection, they cover him with a shimmering blue cloak, sit him up, and take him to a window. From there, Alfredo sees his city, Belém, passing swiftly below. The return is as quick as the ascent. He is placed back in the aquarium. The smaller craft exits the larger one, and he is deposited back in the church courtyard. The last thing he sees is the small craft rising and stopping near a mango tree before his conscious awareness returns, already running and banging on his bedroom door. The abduction on that April night was not the end, but the beginning. Months later, in a second regression session, investigators asked about a strange day when Alfredo felt chills and his nose bled without explanation. The unlocked memory was equally shocking. He remembered lying down in his hammock to rest in the afternoon, something he rarely did. Suddenly, he felt an irresistible sleepiness. He saw one of the beings, Tarim himself, appear in his room and lead him through the wall without anyone around noticing. Aboard the craft again, he was laid on a bed. Tarim approached him and telepathically asked him to calm down. Another being then inserted a thin object, a little metal rod with a ball on the end, into his right nostril and removed something. They explained that they were removing a tiny metallic sphere, a tracking device they had implanted in him years before. The reason for its removal, they no longer needed the tracker. The voice in his mind explained, because now I am entirely theirs, exactly as they wanted. My heart will always be with theirs. Tarim then made him a promise. He would always be by his side to protect him as repayment for the help Alfredo was unknowingly providing to save their civilization. Months later, in February 1997, Alfredo woke up with 2 small injection marks on his arm. A new regression confirmed it. He had been taken again, this time for the collection of a blood sample. The contacts were continuous, most of them happening while he slept, leaving only strange dreams and an inexplicable fatigue as a trace. For Alfredo, he reconciled his experiences by integrating them. He came to believe he was not a victim, but a chosen one. Chosen not for his physical strength or intelligence, but for his humility and his dedication to helping others, qualities that, according to the ETs, were essential for the continuation of a race. He continued his work at the church, his Catholic faith intact, but now a new layer of understanding about the universe. The parish priest, aware of the story, respected his experience, occasionally asking him to retell it. However, the outside world was not so prepared. People began visiting the church, drawn by the famous mark on the grass, believing it possessed healing energies. Fearing the place would turn into a circus, Alfredo and the priest made a drastic decision. The entire church courtyard was covered with a layer of concrete. erasing forever the last physical proof of the landing. Over time, Alfredo was advised to stop talking about the matter. The story that shook his life was slowly buried under layers of silence and concrete. So this case was investigated by the respected UFO magazine, revealing missing time, physical landing traces, and implants. But the most shocking part for me is that the churchyard was completely covered in concrete, forever erasing any physical evidence that this event ever took place. My name is Al Barrows. This has been UFO Disclosure. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks.